the one, the only Benzion. Good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun Benzion. Tonight's daf is Meseches Gittin daf Samech number 60. It's a very famous daf for a couple of reasons, but most notably for a Gemara here on Samech Hamad Beis, where the Gemara says the Gemara has two psukim, which are said in the Torah. One pasuk says, "Ksov l'chas advar ma'ila," right? Both in Dvarim. At the end of the Sefer Torah, it says, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, write down the Sefer Torah. Ksov l'chas advar ma'ila. Ksiv ki al pi advar ma'ila. Also says in Dvarim, ki al pi advar ma'ila. Al pi advarim sounds like al pi is through your mouth. That basically the Torah is supposed to be taught through your mouth. Haketzad. So is the Torah supposed to be written down, or is it supposed to be taught orally? Haketzad. Dvarim shebechtav. So the Gemara learns from this. Dvarim shebechtav yata rashel omer al peh. Things that are written down, like the Chumash, Sefer Torah, the Nevi'im, the Sum, Tanakh. Right? You're not supposed to quote psukim from the Tanakh unless you're reading it from a Sefer. You can't quote psukim. This is halacha, unless it's something which everybody knows and familiar with. If you're not familiar with it, if most people are not familiar with it, you're not allowed to say it. You have to read it from the siddur. You have to say it to Tehillim. You have to read it from the siddur. You're not supposed to say it Baal Peh. Dvarim Shabal Peh Yeta Rasha L'Amrim B'Chtav. And similarly, things to Torah Shabal Peh, which is the Gemara, right, is not supposed to be written down. Now you might ask, wait a second, all Gemara is written down, all Torah Shabal Peh is written down, all of Shas is written down, and it is, which is clearly a violation of the Gemara. The answer is the Gemara says in Maseches Brachos that Rebbe when he started writing the Mishnayos down, was the time people started forgetting the Torah. So he quoted the pasuk in Tehillim, Eis lasos Hashem heferus arasecha. When there's no other option, people are forgetting the Torah. We have to write it down. I want to offer a little different explanation of this Gemara that sort of subverts this problem and gets around this problem, which I think is really true. In 20 years of learning Torah seriously, I think this is really true about Torah. I don't think it's anything to do with Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shabbat per se. I think it has to do with the way you learn the Torah. Whether you're learning Tanakh or you're learning Gemara, I think this is what the Torah, the Gemara means. Torah Shebechtav Yatara Shel Omer Al Peh. When you're reading something from a Sefer, whether you're reading Chumash or you're reading a Gemara, an art scroll, you shouldn't say the word when you're learning. Some people say the words out loud. I found over the years that just reading the words with their eyes. People who read regular books, I don't know. When you read a newspaper, people don't mouth out the words. First of all, it takes more time, and second of all, you lose your focus on what you're reading. It's much easier to read without opening your mouth. It's just an advice the Gemara is giving when you're learning the thing, when you're learning the Torah, and you're learning it through reading from the Sefer. You should learn it through. You shouldn't be speaking. You should just process it mentally. And the second part of the Gemara, Dvarim al Peh, Dvarim shal al Peh, Yeta Rosh al Amram B'Chtav. Dvarim shal al Peh is when you're teaching Torah. When you're teaching Torah, and oftentimes when you're teaching Torah, you're giving some sort of shiur. I give a lot of shiurim. I give 40 shiurim a week. I've always felt that if you write something down, the second you write something down, you take something and you write it down, it's very hard to articulate that when you give it over to other people, unless you're directly reading from what you wrote down. Once you write something down, you sort of forget it. And, even when you write, this is not something with Torah also. If you want to give a speech or something like an oral presentation or something like that, it's good to have like the outline of what you're saying formulated in your mind. But unless you're going to try to memorize it verbatim, which often people forget, and it comes out really weird, which I think what Joe Biden pretty much tries to do, and that's why it comes out so terrible. What he does, he tries to memorize what he's supposed to say, and it just comes out awful. Anytime you're going to present something orally, and it comes to teaching Torah also, the most you want to have is, prepare it outlined in your head. You never want to write that down. Once you write it down, you write your chidushim down, it's very hard to articulate that and to give it over to other people. I think this is really true. Anytime I wrote a chiddush down, I used to write my chiddush for many years before I started giving shiurim. Not until a year or 2 years ago when I started giving shiurim, all my chiddush I used to write down. And once you write it down, you almost forget it. You can't even I can't even read it again. Once you read, I have so many Gemaras. I wrote down Chidushim on the side of the Gemaras. I have papers on papers of Chidushim. It's inaccessible. It's inaccessible anymore. I read it, I don't understand what I'm reading, and certainly to give it over to somebody else, you can't give it over to somebody else. So that's Dvarim Shal Al Peh. When you're teaching the Torah, when you're mouthing out the Torah, you want to articulate the Torah and speak it out to different people. You don't want to write it down. You don't want to write it down, even though you think it'll be beneficial. Maybe it'll be beneficial. There's a lot of people that write Sfarim, Chidushei Torah, write it down. I'm just saying, according to my explanation, I don't think it's a good idea to write Sfarim down. I think everything should be articulated. If you want to say over your Chidushim, find people to say it over to. You remember it better like that. They'll remember it better like that. It doesn't work like that. Dvarim Shabal Peh, things which are said over orally, once you write them down, you lose it, you forget it. And even if a person, you could write it down, you write Chidushei Torah down, write anything down. Write Chidushei Torah down. If you try to learn Chidushei Torah from a sefer, it's not the same as hearing a shir. When you hear a shir, you understand it 100 times better than when you're rereading a sefer that someone wrote down. That's just my personal experience with this. And that really gets around the problem of really writing Gemara down. There's no problem writing a Gemara down. The problem is talking about teaching the Torah. Dvarim Shal Peh is when you're teaching the Torah. There's no chiluk between Torah Shabbatam and Torah Shal Peh. Torah Shabbatam happens to be written down. Torah Shal Peh, psukim, right? It's oral presentation. The psukim, right? You're not giving an explanation. You're just saying the psukim. So that's written down because those are things which are, you're not saying something not novel. You're writing down the words of the Sefer Torah. You can write down Gemaras also. When the presentation is oral, that's what the Gemara means over here. When the Gemara says the Migmarinu Al Peh. Gemara has a machlokas whether most of the Torah, between Rabbi Yochanan and Elazar, is most of the Torah written down or most of the Torah is Baal Peh. It's hard to understand. It's the same Torah, same Gemara, the same. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan had the same Gemara, had the same Tanakh. So what does it mean, Rov Bechtav or Rov Baal Peh? The answer is really like Rabbi Yochanan. We passed the Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan answers, Rov Torah is Baal Peh. The way to get access to the Torah is to say shiurim, to hear shiurim. That's the way to learn Torah. If you want to learn Torah, if you want to be someone who can learn Torah yourself, you have to hear shiurim from Rebbeim who teach you how to learn. That's why there's so much focus in yeshivas on Iyun, because Iyun is very important, at least for a number of years, to learn how to learn. I had 3 principal rabbanim that I learned from: Rabbi Koningsberg, Rabbi Sachs, and Rabbi Friedman, Yaakov Friedman from Beitar, and they all taught me how to learn. If I didn't have those Rebbeim, I never would have known how to learn Baal Peh. How to learn Iyun, and Iyun is basically the gateway to be able to give something over orally. To give over a chiddush orally, you have to be able to learn from someone. It doesn't come from nowhere. And therefore, even though, right, and the other one answers Ki Apel Advarim, because the Gemara says even though most of the Torah is not orally according to Elazar, but it's like over the Torah, most of the Torah, because it's tough to teach it. The toughest part of Torah is to teach the Torah, to understand the chidushim which are given over orally. That's what the Gemara means over here. That's my understanding of the Gemara. Hope you enjoyed tonight's share. See you in the next one.